Hello, how are you? It is day 27 of October and I'm coming into you live. I'm 3 days behind, so I do commit to doing 3 days extra on top of the month of October to talk about, the 3 days of extra I'll do just on top of this to make up for my 3 days where I totally forgot that I was doing lives every day. But today I wanted to talk about something we haven't talked about for a long time. It's actually where we all began here at the Seven Effect. So a lot of you might know me now as a business coach. We specialize in helping women turn their talent, their skills, their knowledge, their experience into a six-figure coaching or consulting business. And on the side, I work with other types of businesses as well. I've been business coaching for about 20 years now, which is pretty cool. Big businesses, small businesses, but the businesses I love the most are the businesses where you turn nothing into something. Businesses where we take the ideas, the brains in your head, and we build it into one high-value program that you can become famous for and make six figures a year working part-time. And so, hello, if you are watching live, by the way, feel free to jump in the chat and say hi. But whilst I've been building businesses the last few years in the Seven Effect, it's easy to forget sometimes where we started and why we were born as a business in the first place. So back in 2009, I had a bit of a wake-up call. Some of you may have heard this story before, where I was at a conference and I heard about this thing called Snow White syndrome. Hello, whoever it is that's watching live. By the way, there is a link just above this video that you can click, and it allows Ecamm to then let me see who you are. You won't be put on camera, don't panic about that, but it'll say instead of Facebook user your name, and I'll get your little profile picture, which is cool. Oh, it's Michelle Lewis. Hello, lovely to see you. So Michelle, I'm just talking a little bit about the 7 elements of life. In fact, I want to talk to you, Michelle, about the being element. I'll do that offline. But I had this wake-up call when I realised that I was stuck with a chronic case of something called Snow White syndrome. So Snow White syndrome comes from a book called The Emotional Capitalists by Martin Newman, a psychologist and a professor. And basically Martin says that, we, people of my generation in particular, are all raised on these stories that end with happy endings. Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, even the superhero stuff, Batman, Robin, Superman, it always ends with a happy ending, which is lovely. We all want happy endings, but the problem is the way we get to the happy ending is someone comes along and saves the day. Someone rescues us. And so essentially what Martin Newman says, and this is the syndrome that he coined as Snow White syndrome, is at an unconscious level, we as adults go through life, we take a bite of the poison apple, the shitty thing that happens to us, and we don't consciously, but we unconsciously lay down and wait for things to get better. We wait for Monday to come around to start the new diet or the new gym membership or whatever it is. We wait for retirement so we will start really living our life. We wait for the miserable person to leave the team so we can all be happy again. We don't. We wait for the kids to grow up and leave the husband or whatever it might be. But what he says is when we are waiting unconsciously, we're obviously not tapping into our true potential. And when he mentioned all this at this conference, I had a massive light bulb moment, because I realised I truly was, as a single mum who had had her heart broken in a relationship, just waiting for my life to get better. I'd had a background of working for myself, making great money, travelling the world, doing what I love for a living as a lifestyle entrepreneur, and a pottery artist was my first businesses, and I loved it. Then I took a bite of the poison apple, the relationship broke down, I decided I wanted to keep the house, I wanted to keep the son in private school. We'd bought a new house, so it was like, okay, shut down the business, sell off your investments and get a real job. And at first it was great, but 3 years in, 2009, I kind of got in this funk. I was just living monotonously. And so it turns out that I've realised that A large majority of the population are actually doing that, and for them that's very normal. In fact, many of them do it for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I did it for 7. Luckily, I had a history of knowing that that's not all there is to life. Luckily, I'd been in business and travelled the world most of my life, so I knew there was an alternative. But the 7 elements of life came about because whilst I was 7 years in the corporate world, I was coaching. I was coaching executives and leaders, and I was teaching or training, leadership training. And as a coach, as a facilitator, your job is to listen and to unpack people's problems and challenges and help them find solutions. And it's interesting because when you get to the root cause of it, your job is to scratch the surface of what people really think is the problem. As a coach, you've got to be curious, you've got to be inquisitive, you've got to ask questions. And so the more questions I asked, the more I discovered that the real problems weren't at work. The real problems weren't with the annoying, toxic white answer, even though on the surface that seemed an issue. But quite often, the real problems for the humans that I was coaching were problems that existed in their life. And they were problems that they weren't even recognizing as problems because it had just become so common and normal in their life. And so the 7 elements of life, which is our own model that we use to help people redesign their life, to create a life that they love, is inspired by the trap, I call it the life trap, that I saw people falling into again and again and again, and I myself fell into that life trap. And there's an order to it, and it begins in the exact order, and this is why the 7 elements of life are ordered the way they are. It begins in the brain, which is the first element of life, and people get this kind of overwhelmed, busy brain where they can't think straight and they can't visualize the future. Working with leaders, you've got to say, tell me what's your vision for the future. And they're like, I can't even imagine what tomorrow's going to look like. Don't ask me to imagine what's 12 months' time. And they can't remember what they did yesterday or the day before. And so their brain becomes exhausted and overwhelmed. When we have mental fatigue, it impacts our body. There's a link between the brain and the body. And so their bodies become physically exhausted. I used to have this myself. I would wake up tired. It's like eyes open, legs not even on the floor out of the bed. And I'm like already, oh my God, I'm exhausted. So it goes from the brain into the body with this mental and then physical exhaustion, the first 2 elements of life, brain and body. Then, as a result of this exhaustion, things start piling up around us. Piles of paper, things don't get put away, clutter, half-finished jobs. And so the 3rd element is the being element, which is really about your environment, the places that you be. And back when I was stuck in the life trap, I had a dining room table that I never saw the light of day. It was just my dumping ground for papers from work, laundry that I'd bring in from the washing line, and it just was always just a dumping ground. Jazz's school bag, the library bag, the books, the whatever. And it wasn't just the dining room table, but I had an entire room that you couldn't really go into because it was so full of junk, and a shed and a garage. And I found that it wasn't just me, but many people had homes that were filled with clutter and chaos, which is the 3rd element of life, the being element. And when you have a life with a busy brain, an exhausted body, and a cluttered environment where you can't relax, but you just look at it and go, I'm so tired, but I really should put that away, and I really should deal with that, but I just can't be bothered, your relationships start to suffer. And this is the love element, the 4th element. It's the one right in the middle. It's the heart, smack bang in the middle of the 7 elements of life. And the thing that really broke my heart when I was a coach in the leadership space was listening to hard-working mums and dads. I coached both men and women, really telling me that they felt distant from their husband, their wife, their children, and they didn't know how to break through because they'd become so distant that it was just awkward in their own house. And it's like, I love my son, but I can't seem to get through to him. Or my daughter is just the apple of my eye, but I feel like she hates me now. And, you're having these conversations with people, and you even have conversations with people and say, well, have you spoken to your husband about that or your wife about that? And they go, oh, God, no, I could never. And so the love element starts to break down, and people live in these relationships that are completely disconnected. Why? Because all of their time is spent trying to make enough money to pay all the freaking bills and keep all the plates spinning. And so this is the next conundrum. We have the love element that is being sacrificed by the time element and the money element. And then the seventh element, so time is fifth, money is sixth, and the seventh element at the bottom of it all, which is the shape of a fire icon, is the passion element. And passion is like having a fire in your belly where you are intrinsically motivated to do stuff. And sadly, what happened most of the time is when we launched the 7 Effect and we started working with people on a deep level through the 7 elements of life, the fire was extinguished. There wasn't even a smolder for many of the women and even the men that we were working with, because they said, you know what? All the other clutter that's going on in the brain, the body, the being, the love, the time, and the money means I haven't even got the space to contemplate what I'm possibly passionate about. And so I thought today I would just remind you of the 7 elements of life and how powerful it can be to actually look at your life. If you ever feel stuck, segment your life using the 7 elements of life and really assess each one. And this is the beautiful life design process that we do, where we go, okay, where am I now in each of these elements? And what would it take to get it to where I want to be? And in fact, before we can even decide that, we go, where do I want it to be? What would a 10 out of 10 look like for me in each of those elements of life? So the 7 elements of life is a really wonderful model that you can use. And if you have been through our Ultimate Life Planning Workshop, if you have been working on the 7 elements of life, and you have kicked a massive goal this year for yourself in any of those elements, the brain, the body, the being, the love, the time, the money, or the passion, then you should 100% nominate yourself, or if you know someone else, nominate them for a Freedom Award. Because did you know this year at the Freedom Awards, we are not just celebrating the 7 elements of business and giving away 7 business awards. We are, for the first time ever, celebrating the art of living. We want to create a movement, the Freedom Movement, the Freedom Fest and Freedom Awards movement, that really reminds people to live, to create freedom, to use their choices to live the life that they want to. And we want to remind people by celebrating success, by showing the world that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when they have the right processes and tools and resources and guidance around them. So that is it for me for today, my rant about life and the 7 elements of life. I hope that you will come and join us. Michelle, if you are still watching, I know you are coming to the Freedom Awards. You're even nominated for some, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's going to be a really spectacular 3 days, the 3-day life planning, leadership planning and business planning retreat. So Freedom Fest is a 3-day planning retreat. Remove yourself from the busyness of your life and your business and really disconnect from the chaos so you can reconnect with a greater vision and inspiration for 2022. Plus, you'll plug into the Ultimate Freedom Planning System and get all the plans you need to wrap up November feeling complete and then celebrate at the awards. Take December off to enjoy the festive season with your family. And then in the new year, you'll have the plans you need to just freaking nail it. Michelle says, I'm still here using my learnings from you to create my coaching course in all those renos. I know, and it's so amazing to see that, Michelle, you're already saving clients that you're helping with your budget reno $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 each time they catch up with you. It's so amazing. So if you're watching this, by the way, Michelle, who's commenting, is the budget reno chick. She has, it's been quite some years now, really mastered the art of renovating properties for a profit using upcycling and recycling strategies. And she's just got all these cool tips and tricks and strategies that she shares with her clients that you would never even think to apply and never imagine that they could work the way that they do. So if you are ever looking to do a renovation, make sure you, in this group, tag Michelle Lewis and ask her for her tips, because she could save you a small fortune whilst making you a small fortune. She's saying, oh, thanks, Jodie Nevin. You know, it's my pleasure. I absolutely love working with you, Michelle. The joy, the excitement, and the kindness that you bring to your clients and to the work that you do in the reno space is just gorgeous. I love it. So excited to build on my sparkle and stoke my fire. Totally. I am excited by that as well. All right, I've got to say thank you so much for watching live. I have a coaching call with a prospective client now. Better jump off, do that, and I'll speak to you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.